This is Julie Pearson Little Thunder with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at Oklahoma State University. And I am here on the Chilocco campus grounds interviewing Mr. Sakiestewa, Leroy Sakiestewa, who is Hopi, class of 48 to 52 at Chilocco, and also a veteran who served in the 82nd Airborne from 1952 to 1955, the Army branch. Leroy, after you left Chilocco, I understand you worked for many years for the BIA as a facility manager at Tuba City, and I'm going to be talking with you about your Chilocco experiences, your veterans experiences, and just a little bit what happened after you left Chilocco. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born and raised in Tuba City, Arizona, and that's where I grew up. That Tuba City is a government boarding school agency there. Well, agency headquarters now for the Western Navajo Agency.
And did you go to school, also boarding school, before Chilocco?
No.
Okay.
At the Tuba City, they had a public school that went to the 8th grade.
Okay.
And after the 8th grade, there was no high schools on the reservation, so all of us had to go off the reservation.
What did your mother and father do for a living?
My father was a plumber, and he went to school in Sherman, Indian School, Riverside, California. Mm-hmm. And then he married my mother, who also attended Sherman. And then as they come through the years, he was working over in Winslow, that railroad, what they call roundhouse, mm-hmm. and then eventually ended up in Tuba City, and that's where he established his career there and worked as a plumber and retired from there.
Brothers or sisters?
Oh, I have a lot of brothers and sisters. There was 12 of us in the family. Today there's 4 of us remaining, and my oldest brother, senior, he is 89 years old.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So, not a lot of Hopi people living in Tuba City, correct? Tuba City, there's a highway 160 that runs through there on up into the Four Corners, New Mexico. And on the north side is a Navajo reservation. On the southern side is Hopi. On the southern side there, right here, which is Moenkopi. That's where I live. That's a Hopi, Hopi village establishment. Okay. And the only reason I say I live in Tuba City because Tuba City has the post office, and there's only one post office that serves both the Hopi and the Navajo tribes there. So when they say, "Where are you from?" Tuba City, because that's where the post office is. I see.
I get my mail there.
So you grew up around your Hopi language and culture?
No, I grew up at Tuba City, and unfortunately, but I'm not, I don't regret it, that my mother and father, they talked fluent Hopi, but they only talked Hopi when they didn't want the kids to know what they were talking about. So we missed out, unfortunately, but now that when I got out of service and got married, then I started picking up the language, and then that's when I got involved into the Hopi religion and the Hopi culture, yeah. Oh, after I married a Hopi girl.
Mm-hmm. So how you explained that you went to public school in Tuba City through the 8th grade, mm-hmm. and then you, did you have a choice about coming to Chilocco, or was that just where most of the students from Tuba City went?
First of all, when there was only one little public school in Tuba City. It was a 2-classroom. There's a 1st grade through the 4th grade with a folding door in one side, and another classroom was from the 5th grade to the 8th grade. And they only had 2 teachers, one for the lower grade and one for the upper grade. So that's what I grew up in as far as my education, yeah, with that. And I think when I graduated, there was about four of us that graduated. There was no high schools on the reservation, let's say. So I elected to come to Chilocco because all of my older brothers and sisters had gone to Ganado Mission. Mm-hmm. And I told my father that I didn't want to go to Ganado Mission, that I wanted to go to somewhere where I could learn a trade. And somehow he heard about Chilocco, and that's where I ended up when I graduated, and then I ended up here in Chilocco to get my trade education.
That's pretty young to be thinking, were you already thinking about a certain trade, or were you just open to whatever trade?
No, it was just open because at that time I didn't really know. And then until I got to Chilocco, then I learned what different ones they wanted. I wanted to be a mechanic, started out with, but then I changed to plumbing, and that's where I stayed with plumbing for 3 years, and then that's where I graduated as a plumber.
Right. What was one of the hardest adjustments you had when you got to Chilocco? What was the most different thing? Really, nothing.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't lonesome, you know. I just kind of fell in with the crowd, and my roommates were four boys that we roomed together up for the first year, and then we split up in a 2 and 2. So there's one person that was a freshman up there in our room, Don Freeman, and him and I roomed together for 4 years. Yeah, so no, there was no adjustment, and I don't know why that I didn't feel lonesome for home or not. I didn't have no feeling for that. I just felt right at home when I got here.
But it was also a really intertribal experience. That was a new intertribal experience for you.
Yeah, yes, it was. Yeah, but that because, like I said, I was not raised in the Hopi tradition. In my younger years, I grew up. I guess you might say I grew up as an Anglo, mm-hmm. And so when I got up here, there wasn't a big transition. Mm-hmm. And like I said, until I got married, and that's when I got involved into the Hopi tradition and religion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You had different details while you were here, right? At school. What was one that you liked or didn't like, and why?
Really, I didn't have no dislikes. I understood that I had to, clean my room, and then I had to have my turn to go and take care of the restrooms and showers. So I really didn't have no choice because it was rotated. So to me, it was just doing what I was supposed to do when my time come.
What do you remember about the meals here?
Oh, the meals were okay. I mean, they weren't the greatest, but they were okay. I guess the things that I remember the most was the fruit, bananas. I've never had bananas before, and so the bananas is always one of the favorite fruits that I had here. But the food was, the other thing that I never had very much was cobbler. We always had cobblers here, so that was another one that I enjoyed. But yeah, overall, all the food, it was satisfactory to me. I didn't have any dislike of any of them. Like they said, some people said, well, they don't like broccoli. Well, we didn't have any broccoli, so there's none of the food that I didn't like. Yeah, it was all good.
How about memories of dances?
Dancing? Oh yeah, I became a jitterbug. A king, I guess you might say. Yeah, I liked jitterbug, and all the girls would dance with me because I was a pretty good jitterbugger. So that was one of my favorites, just jitterbugging.
Did you play in a band or participate in athletics?
Let me tell you about my band experience. I wanted to be a band. I learned how to play an instrument. My father is a musician. He played about 5 or 6 different instruments when he went to school in Sherman. And so I took up band, and my band teacher, I get there early, so instead of going and finding my place where I'm supposed to sit when the class starts, I go up there and I start playing with all these instruments, you know. And so the teacher looked at me one day early and he said, Leroy, you ain't going to learn how to play nothing. You just want to mess around. And so I suggested you find something else. So that was my career in that, learning how to play an instrument. So that's what I said. That's a funny thing that happened. I never did learn how to play an instrument. But all my brothers and sisters, they play instruments, and my dad did play. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what was the other question? Oh, in sports.
Sports.
That's where I got my recognition from everybody that knows me now. Because I was a short, little Hopi Indian, and I was in basketball. I made I made the varsity as a substitute in my freshman year. And in my junior and senior year, I was captain of the basketball team, and I played I played football. So I didn't shine in there, but I played football. I played baseball, and I ran track. I ran a mile and a 2 mile. So those are the sports that I participated in. All of those, but basketball was my big thing, and everybody through the 4 years that seen me play basketball, that's what they remember me by. Oh yeah, you're that little short homie, good basketball player.
That moves fast.
Yeah.
How about teachers or administrators from Chilocco that stood out for you in a good or a bad way?
I didn't have any bad teachers. You know, they were all good. The teacher that I really admired was Kay Arnican. She was my English teacher. Yeah, and I always talk about her. That was my favorite teacher. The other teachers were good teachers, you know, and I got along fine with all of my teachers. The only one I think I took advantage of when they were new teachers, they just came aboard, was one of the teachers. She was a typing, yeah. Clerical. And I was in that class there, and I kind of took advantage of her. I think because I'd make excuse to ask her that she needed the wastebasket empty, so I'd take it out, empty it, and stay a few minutes late, yeah, then come back. So I kind of think of that as I might have took a little advantage of her, you know. But she was nice and kind. Yeah, she never got on my case about that.
You didn't like typing?
I like typing. Yeah, I like typing because that's where I started out. When I got home and I started my career I started as a laborer, and then I got a position as a clerk typist, and that's where my typing skills came into play. Yeah, so I did use that for a little bit.
So it was good that you had it. So when you knew the National Guard Center was on campus.
Yes.
When did you get interested in enlisting?
I wasn't able to enlist. I tried to enlist in 1950, I think it was 50 or 51, but I was too young. I think I was 16, and so I wasn't old enough. So I wasn't able to join the Guard. But so that was my career as far as trying to join the National Guard. Yeah, but I knew about it, and I knew a lot of the boys that was in there. Yeah.
And then when you finished at Chilocco, you enlisted in the service, in the Army. Can you tell me a little bit about how that happened?
Yeah, when I graduated, I did a little presentation, and one of the little businesses, a water softening business, he hired me right after I graduated. And so I went to work for him there for about a month.
In plumbing, was it?
In plumbing, yeah.
Okay.
We serviced water softeners, you know, regenerated them, and so I did that for a month, and then I decided I was going to go home and not come back. So I went home for about a month. Then I decided to come back, and I told the man that I wasn't going to come back. So I didn't expect to have my job when I came back, but I came back, and there was no work around here to be had. And I stayed with a friend that had graduated a couple of years before I did. I knew, so I stayed there, and I couldn't get a job. So then being another friend, we decided to go down to see the recruiter and we went down there, and I told my friend, I says, we went down to join the Navy, and there's a post office downstairs in the basement, and as we was coming up, there's a big sign there says, because the Navy recruiter's office was closed, the big sign says, join the Army, be a paratrooper. And I told my friend, I said, I don't want to get in the Army, I don't want to be a paratrooper. He said, oh, we just go there and talk to him. So he talked me into it. We went up, it was upstairs the next level, we went up there. And but when we came walking out, we had already we had enlisted when we came out the door. Yeah, but we were both out of a job, and it was hard. Yeah, so we enlisted, and then that's how I got into the service, because it came to that point that I've been staying with the people there for a couple of weeks there, and there was no jobs, and so I decided. And I had my applications in at the unemployment office there, and then didn't get no response, and until I got in the service, and I got all kinds of response. They're going, come in for an interview. Too late, I'm in the Army.
Where did you do your basic training?
Fort Riley, Kansas. Yeah. I was up there for 16 weeks at Fort Riley, Kansas. Yeah.
What was the hardest thing about being in basic training?
I guess, well, not really. I guess really it was the discipline. Yeah, it's a little bit more stricter than when we were here. Yeah, I guess that was a thing that I had to get used to. Other than it was no problem, because I learned how to fix my bed here. I learned how to clean around my area here, and I was younger on the reservation. I used to go hunting with my .22, so rifle was nothing new to me. So the bed fixing, no problem there. And people didn't know how to fix beds, and that was surprising to me. But to me, so that was the only thing. I guess it was the discipline that I had to learn. Yeah. Other than that, it was just kind of, I guess you might say, kind of snap, because I had learned all that stuff in the boarding school.
What happened after Fort Riley? Where did you go?
Fort Riley, I went to jump school in Fort Benning, Georgia. Yeah, because I had signed up to be a paratrooper, and so. And the only reason I joined up to be a paratrooper, so because they were paying them like $50 a jump, and we had to jump about every 3 months in order to qualify for that $50 extra. So that was the only reason that I
what was your first jump like?
It wasn't bad. What was before that, when it's going through training, there's a 20-foot jump that they teach you how to jump and position yourself while you're coming out of the plane. That was, to me, just 20 foot up in the air was scarier than jumping out of the airplane.
Wow.
Yeah. So when I was jumping out of the airplane, it was just noisy. And then as soon as you get out, everything's just quiet. Yeah, and you come floating down by yourself. Yeah, and you could see people, but the airplane was done past you. Yeah. So yeah, that was it wasn't scary as far as jumping out of the plane. It was just scary when I was training 20 foot up. I looked down and God, that was a long ways down.
Because you could see the ground.
Yeah.
That must have been an amazing experience to make your first jump.
Yeah, it was. And, they talk about Friday the 13th. I made my 5th qualifying jump on Friday the 13th. Thursday the 13th, we were supposed to make our 5th jump. And that would qualify us. And then we had our graduation on Friday. Because it was windy, we had to wait till Friday morning and jump. Friday the 13th, jump, and then go back and get on our uniforms and then go to our graduation. Yes.
Were you a little nervous because it was Friday the 13th?
Well, I wasn't real nervous, but I guess I thought about it. Friday the 13th, I had never...
The other guys were probably teasing.
No, nobody said anything about it. But I just, I've heard about Friday the 13th, but I never did really know or see or about anybody really having any kind of a catastrophe on Friday the 13th. So that didn't really sink in. It was just I wonder, if something would happen on Friday 13th. But as I gone through the training and getting ready to get on the plane, that was all gone by the time I was getting ready to jump out of the plane.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened then after you've gotten your certification and you are certified to?
Yeah, when we graduated and we were being shipped out to our permanent bases, it was, we got up early in the morning. It must have been about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, raining and thundering, and they had a roster and they were calling out names. Okay, this group is going to Fort Bragg. Okay, they would come. My name didn't come up. This group is going to Korea. Well, I'm sitting there with them. They called a list. It wasn't on there. Then it went about several different ones, and some was staying at Fort Bragg. Then they had that list. Says, okay, this is going to Fort Bragg to this unit, and my name popped up on there. So so I loaded on a bus, and then they took us up to Fort Bragg. Yeah, to where I was stationed until I got out of service. Yeah, I didn't get sent overseas. Yeah, and so I stayed there in Fort Bragg, and then I got rank, so I got out as a sergeant. Yeah.
As a sergeant,
Yes. Yeah.
Did you have specific? Did you work in a specialized area at all, or just as a sergeant?
Yeah, well, we had our little gun platoons there. So
okay.
Yeah, I worked up my way from. They started as gunners, and then so I worked my way as to the leader of that gun group. Yeah, yeah.
Were there very many other Native soldiers in your division?
Yeah, I think there was one that was, but he was in a different. We had A, B, C battery, so he was in a different battery, but we were all in the same location, and he had gone. I knew him here at school. We went to school together, and then there was 2 other guys that were on the up there in the 82nd, but they were on the boxing team, so they were up there just training for boxing. Yeah, so there was those 3 classmates of mine that were up there at Bragg that I had gone to school with.
Well, I didn't realize. I knew some people would play like softball or basketball for the armed forces, but I didn't realize that boxing also, that you could just box and kind of tour.
Yeah.
Wow. But anyway, Chilocco was with you still.
Yep. I tried out for basketball, but they had back then they were drafting, so they had drafted some college students. So the competition was a little bit more
really
than
tough.
I could handle. Yeah.
Did you go off base, and what was that like being in the South at Fort Benning? What was that like?
Yeah, I went off base quite a bit, and the nearest town to us was Fayetteville. Yeah, so that's where we spend just about all my weekend. But as the years went on, I went a little further south to a little town called Pembroke. That was an Indian community, and they had a little small college there. So I got to know the mayor down there, and so I used to go down and visit him, and spend the weekend down with him. So him and I became good friends. Then also, there was no what I say Indians around, Native Americans, and around that area. So I told my buddy, one of that I had gone to school with, and we ran around. I said, let's go to Cherokee, North Carolina. I said, I heard there's a lot of Indians over there. Maybe find us an Indian girl over there. So we hitchhiked over there to Cherokee, North Carolina, and sure enough, we met a couple girls, and they had gone to school at Haskell. Yeah.
Oh.
So we became friends, and then I went up there and visited them a couple times, but we just became good friends and nothing other than that. Yeah.
Right.
But that was and that's where I learned about in Arizona, and where I'm at in the desert. They have these salamanders that they fish with. Well, that's where I learned what a salamander was in Cherokee, North Carolina.
So, what happened after you did your military service?
After I was going to re-enlist into the military, and then I came home on Christmas, and that's when I met this Hopi girl in Hopi, Tuba City. Yeah, that's when I met her, and so that the love bug bit, and so there went my military career. I decided to get out, and I came home, and then we got married. She lived down in Hopi all her life. She was born and raised in Hopi, and so she has grew up with the tradition and religion of the Hopis. And so when I got married, and that's when she taught me, and then I got involved in our Hopi. If I hadn't married her and married maybe another Indian tribe or a non-Indian, I probably never would have known about our Hopi religion, even though I'm a full-blooded Hopi. Yeah. So I'm thankful that turned out that way.
Yeah.
Because all of my kids, all my grandkids, we've taught them the Hopi tradition. Yeah. Yeah, and the religion. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So, so once you get married, then how is your what you learned at Chilocco and also in the military? How is that impacting your career?
I guess how it helped me is when I got married, and it was just like any other place. It was hard to find a job, so that's why I said I started out as a laborer, and then I finally got my foot in the door, and this is all with the BIA. Then I got working as a plumber's helper, because I had told them I took plumbing when I was, and then after that, then I worked myself into a plumbing position. Yeah, so that's where that helped me from my plumbing education here in Chilocco, that I went through the steps and finally became a pro. Then from there, I kept moving up, then I became a supervisor. Then like I said, when I retired, the last 15, 20 years of my career, then I was a manager, facility manager. That's when I retired as a facility manager.
And what you were primarily, you were facility manager for the on-reservation boarding schools in the area. Did you see, how did you compare maybe your experiences? And you're not going to school there, but you're coming into contact probably with, you're making decisions about facilities and things. What kinds of differences did you see maybe with Chilocco or?
The difference was that as a facility manager, we were only took care of the maintenance and operations of the school. The education, they had principals and all, so they took care of the education part. So I worked with and we had groups up to schools that took care of the boarding schools, the bigger boarding schools, and they took care of all the maintenance and operations for the schools. Yeah, and that was everything. We took care of the wells when they went down. Our budget included purchasing fuel, oil for the boilers, and LP gas for the houses and everything, heaters and everything like that. That was what the facilities portion we did there. But I guess the little bit of experience that I did have that I'm really proud of, when I was coming up through the ladder, I had a chance to go to a little school called Kaibito, which is 50 miles from Tuba City, which is headquarters. And so I went up there as a work center foreman. Yeah, and my wife was over there. She was in the dorm as a dorm manager working up. And when I was up there for 10 years, then that's when I got involved in coaching these girls basketball team. And we had a lot of winning teams, and we used to come compete with all the other boarding schools. Yeah, the girls teams they had. So and then each year we would go down to the state, down to Phoenix, and play in the state. Yeah, basketball. Yeah, so that was a good experience that I really cherished when I was still working. Yeah, in those days.
That is neat. What made Chilocco unique in your mind from your other school experience, which was with that very small school?
Well, that very small school was, I don't remember a whole lot about it because I was so young there. Yeah, but, and the only thing I really remember about it is that you knew everybody because there's just a small community, and then we ran around with everybody. And but other than that was that from Chilocco. And then when I came to Chilocco, it was a large group of kids that I were associating with. Yeah, and but like I said, that wasn't hard to get used to. So I didn't have no problem with that. Right? So yeah, so really, and I guess you might say the big difference that when I was there in a public school in Tuba, our basketball court was just ground, just a piece of earth down it and a gold on each end. That's what I learned how to play basketball. Then when I got up here and we started playing in that gym over here, shoot, I was in another world with a hardwood floor. Yeah,
that was great.
Yeah.
What is important to you about coming to the Chilocco reunions?
I guess it's just hoping that I would be able to see more of my classmates. But for the last 3-4 years, there's only been 2 of us, Claudine King and Paul Reed and myself. Those are the only 3 class of 52s that have been here in the last 3 years. And I was hoping that just somebody from our class, 1 or 2 would be here, but that didn't happen. And the other thing that I was hoping, but it's been disappointing, is that the younger ones that had graduated in, say, the 60s and the 70s, all with 8, there is maybe 1 or 2 now and then, but there's not that many people. There are not that many. So it has been the ones that were in the 50s that to me seems like that has supported the reunion every year.
Carrying it forward.
Yeah.
Are you a member of the Southwest chapter for Chilocco? Do you ever go to their functions?
Yes, I'm one of the, what they call the originators that just started it up.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. And so I was part of that group when Betty Deere and George England and some of those, but Betty Deere's passed on now, and some of the others that started up are gone. Yeah, but I'm one of the original chapter members. But now I'm presently serving and I have been serving as the vice president of the Great Southwest chapter, and I'm their vice president now today. And so those that originally started it, they're not really there. There's 1 or 2 still living, but the others have passed on. And so now we have a new president, and I'm still a vice president. And so it seems like right now it's primarily, we have a lot of members throughout the Southwest, Oklahoma, Idaho, and California. But as far as their presence there, they're not there, but they're on a paper, on a roster. And the ones that we attend our meetings is primarily the Navajo students that were here. So that's carrying the Great Southwest. And
the big program, Navajo program that they had.
Yeah. Well, it started out of that Navajo program way back in the 50s, 48, I think 47 it started. And it was a 5-year Navajo program. And I don't know when it ended, but now after that, then the Navajo students, they came here as high school students. Yeah. So we have a few of those that came here as freshmen in high school. Yeah. And then we also have those older ones in my age that were here doing the 5-year program.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but we're still well and living, and we've grown a little bit. Yeah. Since the last couple of years, our attendance has gone up a little bit. So,
that's great.
So that's good.
That is good. Well, what else would you like people to know or remember about Chilocco?
I would like them to remember that Chilocco was one, and this is the only boarding school I attend, but this is the greatest boarding school I've ever attended. I've learned a lot. I've learned how to take care of myself. And I learned how to get along with other tribes and individuals. Yeah, never had a fight with anybody while I was here in my 4 years. I've heard a lot of horror stories after I graduated about people that were I don't know if they went to boarding school, but they must have read a little bit of history, that they were talking about how the boarding school was demeaning and downgrading, and that's not what happened here at Chilocco. It made me a better person and a bigger person. And like I said, the food was fine. Yeah, the kids were great, but I know that what I had heard after I left, that there was some hardships that did take place here that I can't realize, because when I was there, we was all very good friends and knew everybody. We were just like family, and even some of the girls in my class, we were so close. I just considered them as my sisters. That's the kind of relation that we had. Yeah, it wasn't like the boyfriend-girlfriend thing. It was just like they were my sisters, yeah, and brothers. And same with the guys that I grew up with in a dorm. They were just like my brothers. And so that was the experience. And that, like I said, the experience that I got as, well, the first year you had to take agriculture. So I learned a lot about Aggie, and then I learned my trade in plumbing. And so when I got out, I was in the cattle business earlier in my years. So I raised cattle until the drought put me out of business. So then I'm no longer in the cattle business. But yeah, I learned how to deal with the animals, because that was the first year that we had to take that course. We took agriculture in the morning, go to school in the afternoon. We'd take trade and then go to school. Next morning, ag. That's how the schedule was staggered.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are the things that I remember. And I don't know. I think that just looking back, that it's maybe a better person. Yeah. Looking at today's kids. Yeah. We were disciplined, but we were not with a big stick. But we did. And I was just talking to a couple of my classmates, how when we used to have I guess you might say law and order here, they had the Letterman's Club, that whenever the students got in trouble, they had to go before the Letterman's Club, and the Letterman's ruled with a paddle. So it was fellow students. Yeah.
Other students.
Yeah. And then it depended on what the situation was, that they would get so many hits with a paddle by all of the lettermen that were present. Yeah, and so that made us behave pretty much. But we only did it once. If you did it once, you didn't do it. You knew it about it, you didn't do it at all. And I knew about it, so I didn't get in any trouble. But I did letter, so I was a letterman, and I went through the initiation. And back then, I got my paddlings, and nowadays you can't even touch the kids, So that's the difference that it was when I was, and we went through this initiation into the different organizations that we had. But that was one of the, I guess, more harshest one that I went through was the letterman's, because we had to go through the paddling, and then we had to dress up in the girls' clothing for a whole week. We had that initiation clothes. But we didn't think nothing about it back then, you know. So it's all part of going to school, I guess. Yeah, so I enjoyed it. We stood back and laugh about it, and tell good stories about that. So that was my experience. Yeah, but I wish that somehow that we, the Alumni Association, was able to work with the tribes and keep these buildings, you know, halfway standing instead of let them deteriorate. And I even look back now and wish that the tribes and the association had got together and made this a trade, strictly trade school. They have those on the reservation. Navajos has them a couple places on the reservation. And so you still need to train people for trade. Yeah, not all of them are not like they thought they were going to do. They were going to educate them so they could all go to college. It's not like that. We have a lot of them on the reservation that need the trade skills. Yeah, and so that's what I wish that could have happened here, but that's water under the bridge.
Well, but I do hope, that there can still be things that happen, and that's those are good thoughts. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Leroy.
Okay, thank you. Enjoy talking to you.
Okay, we're doing a little postscript to Leroy Sakiestewa's. Thank you, Leroy. Sakiestewa's interview, and it's right here.
Yeah. Okay, what I wanted to tell this story here, and because I really want to write a little book about it, as how I got here. Okay, when I graduated from the 8th grade at Tuba City, like I said, we had to go off the reservation to go to high school. And so my father somehow heard about Chilocco. So he got with the BIA school superintendent education department, and he got me into this group to transport me up here. So they had buses come up to Tuba City and load us up, take us to Flagstaff, and we board the train at Flagstaff. And back then the trains just still had those wooden seats, and they didn't have no soft padded seats. They were all wood. And we rode the train. We got it late in the afternoon, so we rode it all night. When we come up here, and up here by the highway where the existing railroad is now, and I was thinking about that. How long has that railroad been there? But it was about there when I came in '48. There's a little train, I don't know what they call a station, used to be there where they drop off the mail and stuff like that. Well, they stopped there, and that's where we deboarded the train. All of us. There must have been at least 300, 400 Navajo students, and I was right in the middle of only Hopi in the middle.
Hopi in the middle.
Yeah, and so they threw all of our baggage on the back of a truck, stake-bodied truck, you know, and no buses to haul us down. Okay, get in, throw the baggage in, and then we get in and rode from there, from the railroad station, the highway, into the school in the back of a truck into her.
That's a great
And
story.
The first thing I remember coming down through the alley was the those what do you call them? They sound like the crickets,
Cicadas?
No, those.
Do they fly?
Yeah, they fly.
Locusts.
Locusts, yeah. There's a few locusts out in Tuba there, but there's thousands out here, and that's what I remember coming down that, and I just heard those locusts singing as I came down here. We got down here, and they took us to dorm 6 back there. It was dorm 6 there, the boys' dorm, and that's where they get in there and start sorting us out where to go and what dorm we were going to be assigned to live in. And so when I got here, there was a person that I knew. He had gone to school at the boarding school at Tuba City. I knew him. He was a Navajo. And he had been up here the year before. And when I come walk in the door, he says, "What are you doing up here, Leroy?" He says, "We don't want no Hopis up here." And I said, "I'm sorry, but you got one now." But this was all in fun, because I knew him when we were kids in Tuba. Yeah, and so that was my experience. I got here, and they assigned me, because I didn't know anything about where I was supposed to be or except coming here to high school. So I was assigned a room with 3 other Navajo boys over in dorm 1. And then so I got there, stayed there. I think it was, we got here maybe on a Saturday or something like that. I stayed here a couple of nights. Then Monday, they said, okay, this group, you go over here to Navajo program, which is on one end of the campus, and high school's on the other end. So I followed them up there, and I was wandering around where to go. And so everybody went, they must know where to go, but they all went there, and I was out there still wandering around. And one of the teacher aides come on, and he says, asked, can I help you? And, yeah, I said, I need some help. So I'm over here to go to high school. And he says, well, okay. And she asked my name, and I told him my name. He says, yeah, the high school's over there, across the campus. We pointed over here. He says, okay. So I went over there, and I went over there. So that's when I went over there and told him I was up here for high school. So then that's when they, okay, he's high school. So then they kind of went backward, and I went over there, and then they reassigned me. They took me out of there with where I was taking with the Navajo boys, and they put me into a room where there was the freshman boys.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's my experience getting to the Chilocco. So I want to write a little story about that, how I got up, because people ask me, how did you get up there? You know, how? It's not that it put me up there. I knew where I was going. I just wandered around there, and that's how I found my way around.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you for that story.
Okay.